Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Connection Collective. I am your host, Diana Keller, and this week we have our June Fierce Friends episode, and I am very, very excited to be diving into this topic today and exploring a new roadblock that keeps us from being able to build and maintain friendships. Throughout this episode, we're going to be talking about a specific topic. We're going to be talking about why this comes up. We're going to be talking about how we can address it, and we're going to be talking about what action we can take moving forward. So I'm really excited to explore this because it is something that comes up in our lives very often, and we don't necessarily realize the impact that this has on us and how it's impacting our friendships. So I want to go ahead and dive in, and today we're talking about this topic of the quote unquote let's hang out lull. And the let's hang out lull is this endless cycle that you get into with your friends where you're like, oh, let's hang out. And then all of a sudden, 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months have passed, and you haven't hung out with that friend, and you maybe haven't even texted them. And so, like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking a little bit about this lull. We're going to be talking about why it happens. We're going to be talking about how to address it. And then moving forward, what action we can take to help us get out of this lull on a regular basis. So first and foremost, let's talk about what this lull is and why it happens. So I can even say from personal experience, I have a tendency to be bad about this. I have gotten a lot better, but I have had a tendency to be really bad about this in the past, where you'll hang out with a friend and as you're leaving, you're like, oh my gosh, that was so good. Let's hang out again, or we have to get that hangout on the calendar. And then you don't do anything about it. You take zero action. You don't, plan an event. You don't plan a time to hang out. And you may not even text one another for months down the line. And I want to talk about why this happens at the very root of it. The easy answer is that life gets busy, and I am not in any way, shape, or form negating that truth. Life gets busy. As someone who works a day job and runs a business on the side, plus is married, has family that I want to spend time with, has friends that I want to spend time with, I am not downplaying the fact that life gets busy. And sometimes you just have a tendency to lean on this let's hang out without planning because you may not have the capacity for it. And that is super duper understandable. Life gets busy. You have these obligations, you have, work, all of these things. But then on the opposite side of that, or not even on the opposite side of that, at the root of that, what's actually happening is you're not prioritizing that friendship, or that friendship, the hanging out with that friend is not important for you. It's not a priority for you in this season of life. And that's okay sometimes. Truly, truly it is. But sometimes, and I would say more often than not, we don't realize that we're not prioritizing that friendship. Because if I were to ask you, if I were to look at you right now as we're talking, and I would say, is that friendship a priority for you? You would probably say yes. But you would say, yes, but life is super busy, or yes, but I just don't have the time, or yes, but insert excuse here. And so what you're telling yourself in those instances, what you're telling yourself is, yes, I want to prioritize this friendship, but in reality, there are other priorities above that. Things like work take, top priority, or things like family take a top priority, or things like rest, which is understandable, take a higher priority. And at the end of that priorities list comes this friendship. And you don't necessarily realize that you're doing it, but in reality, you can only prioritize so many things. And so if you have 20 things on your priorities list, you can maybe prioritize 3 of those. And so that friendship is down at the very, very bottom of that list. And that is when the let's hang out lull happens. Is because you're not prioritizing that friendship because there are other things in your life that have a higher priority. And sometimes it's what needs to happen. Sometimes your family, sometimes your job, sometimes yourself, you need to be a higher priority. But there's that but again. If that friendship lives at that bottom of that priority list for months, days, weeks, months, years, it's never gonna happen. You're never gonna be able to see that friend. You're never gonna be able to give them the time and attention and love that they deserve. And so today I want to talk a little bit about how we can maybe reframe this for ourselves. How can we reframe this let's hang out so that that friendship isn't on the bottom of the priority list month after month? So let's go back to a time in your life, okay? I want you to do some envisioning with me. And I want you to think about a friend that when you spend time with your friend, it's really cup filling. It's really joyful. It feels really good for yourself. And I want you to think about like a specific time, a specific person. And then I want you to think about, okay, when you left that hangout, what did you do next? Did you say, let's hang out? Oh my gosh, this was so good. We need to do this more often. I could hear it in my head for myself. Oh my gosh, this was so great. We need to do this more often. Or did you say, this was great. Let's do this again. What does your schedule look like? Okay. Chances are, because the majority of us fall into this, you may have been in that first one. Oh my gosh, this was so great. Let's do this again. And then you hug and then you leave. And then again, you may not have texted for a while. You may not have scheduled anything, but I want you to envision a specific instance. Okay. And I want to ask you this question. I want you to answer this honestly for yourself. What happened next? Did you hang out again? Did you get something on the calendar? Did you maybe text them a couple days later and, tell them how much fun you had, but then never make plans? How long was it in between the time that what you're envisioning and the time that you got to hang out with them again? Was it months later? Think about how you felt between those times. From the time that you left and you're like, oh, that was so good. We should do this more often. And when you actually got to see them again, if you hung out with them again, what did you feel? Did you maybe feel bummed? Did you maybe feel awkward? Did you maybe feel like you weren't being honest with this? That was so great. Let's do this again. And then by the time that you hung out with them next, did you end up having the exact same conversation that you had the last time that you hung out? Because it had been so long. The reason that I'm painting this picture for you is because I want you to recognize what's coming up for you and recognize that, is friendship truly a priority in your life? Or do you say it's a priority and it gets put on the back burner because there are so many other things? And my goal through today's episode is not to make you feel guilty or shameful or any negative thing for falling into this rut, because we all do from time to time. But my goal is to maybe help you look at yourself, look at your thoughts, and maybe reevaluate how you can better prioritize hanging out with your friends so that you don't get into this rut from time to time. So I want you to ask yourself some questions. I'm going to pose some questions for you. And there's kind of a lot here. So you don't need to necessarily think in depth about every single question, but I want you to kind of work through these questions. So the first question that I want you to ask yourself is, when this happens, so when you're like, oh my gosh, this was so great, we should do this again, do you actually mean it? Do you actually want to hang out with that person? Because quite frankly, if the answer is no, that's okay. You don't have to. We'll do a whole separate episode about like friend breakups and when it's time to maybe move on for a friendship, or when it's time to work on the foundation of the friendship. But I want you to ask yourself, first of all, do you actually want to hang out? Okay. Think of this almost like a flow chart. So if no, then just allow yourself to be okay with that. Don't feel shameful, don't feel guilty, and also don't lie to the other person of, oh, this was so great, let's do this again. Or if they reach out to make plans, you don't necessarily need to ghost them, you don't need to lie, but you can do it in a really productive way. And again, we have a whole separate episode for that. But if you do actually want to hang out with them, let's move to kind of the next step. All right, so when you are with your friend, what are some things that you can connect on? What are some things that bring you both joy? And how can you incorporate those things into your life, into your friendship? So for me, for example, something that, really helps me connect with other people, something that really brings me joy is getting to share cocktails with friends or mocktails with friends. I love the mixology craft. And so getting to go to cocktail bars, whether you're drinking or not, like I said, you can get a cocktail, you can get a mocktail, but something like that brings me a lot of joy. And it's something that I want to share with others. And so when I think about, okay, yes, I want to hang out with them. This is something that we can connect on. This is something that brings me joy. Maybe we can do something with that. The other thing that kind of goes along with that is what activities can you do together, especially ones that allow you to prioritize time together. Outside of cocktails and mocktails, meals are a really great way, especially for me, to be able to connect with people that I love. It's something that I really enjoy. It brings me happiness, and it's easy to connect over a meal. And so when I am making plans with people, like I said, cocktails and mocktails are something that I really enjoy. Good food and being able to support local restaurants is also something that brings me a lot of joy. What's an activity that you can do that allows you to connect, it brings you joy, and it's an activity that you enjoy together. So something else, here's some more examples, because food and drink are maybe easy. They're kind of a go-to for people, and you're like, okay, Diana, that was great advice, but do you have anything else? For sure, I got you. Something else that I really enjoy that brings me joy, that I can connect with people over, and as an activity, is board games. I really enjoy playing board games. And so getting to go play board games with a friend is nice. And also, if it's something that you're like, I don't want to necessarily spend a lot of money, that's a great way to not necessarily spend a lot of money, but have quality time with your friends. Other things, going to sporting events. So I personally am a big FC Cincinnati fan. I have season tickets, but you don't necessarily have to have season tickets to be able to go to a sporting event. That's also really a good opportunity to spend time with friends and do something that's maybe a little different, because food and drink is an easy go-to, but something like a sporting event or playing games might be something that's a little bit different. Now that we're in the summer, spending time outside, all of those things. So I want you to ask, I've given you quite a few examples, but I want you to ask, okay, what is an activity that I can connect with my friend on? Is it food and drink? Is it board games? Is it getting outside? Is it going kayaking? Is it going to a sporting event? Think outside the box. All right. Another big question that I want you to ask yourself, and this one is very logical, it's very practical, because if you've been listening so far and you're getting to the point where you're actually saying to me, you're like, Diana, this sounds great, but it's also not reasonable for my schedule. I don't have the time. Like, I want to prioritize friendship, but it just can't be a priority for me. If that is the case, I have a question that I think is going to be really applicable to you. And the question is, how can you temptation bundle and or habit stack? They're very similar. So if you're not familiar with temptation bundling, or if you're not familiar with habit stacking, there are ways to pair things together so that it makes them easier to do multiple tasks at once. So temptation bundling is really focused on doing something you don't necessarily enjoy with something that you do enjoy, because that thing that you don't necessarily enjoy, it still has to be done. So for example, I really enjoy going to Costco, and sometimes I just need to run to Costco. And I have a friend that I work with, and so sometimes we will run to Costco together. It allows us to have quality time and get something checked off of our list. Something else, going, getting outside, going for walks, doing physical activity. Maybe you want to check out a new gym, but you don't necessarily want to go by yourself. Inviting a friend along to check out a new gym or check out a new workout class is a great way to temptation bundle. It's like a twofer. You get to do something that you need to do with something that you want to do while also spending quality time with your friends. Something else that I mentioned was habit stacking. So habit stacking is doing multiple habits, kind of one right after the other. And this is where you can, so if you want to, like, hang out with a friend, and then it's something I was going to get into a little bit later in the episode, but every time that you hang out with that friend, instead of just saying, let's hang out, we can actually put the next hangout on the calendar, and we get into this rhythm of habit stacking so that we aren't in this lull of let's hang out. You actually make plans. And again, I'm going to come back to that a little bit later in the episode. One other question that I will ask you, I think I have like 3 more for you. Another question that I'm going to ask you is, would it help to expand your friend group? So this one is also incredibly practical and is something that I think is really valuable. So if you really want to spend time with your friends, but you're limited on what you can dedicate to friend time, try and get multiple friends together at the same time. So the example that I'll give you, I have 2 really good friends, and I've been friends with them for 20 years, Julie and Arden. And I think I've talked about them on the podcast before. But when I hang out with them, we've gotten into kind of this habit of hanging out all 3 of us together instead of, hanging out with Julie and then hanging out with Arden. And because they know each other and we've all been friends for a really long time, it gives us the opportunity to spend quality time together, all 3 of us, so that I'm not planning separate hangouts for each of them. They also both live about an hour away, so when I spend time with them, we pick a place that's somewhat central, so that again, we can all spend time together at once in a place that meets in the middle. Do you have an opportunity to kind of do the same? Now, the instance that I gave, Arden and Julie obviously know each other. We've all been, together for a long time. We've been friends for a long time. But that doesn't have to be the case. So I will pick on my friend Tori. Tori and I hang out usually once a month. We will play board games, we'll go kayaking, we'll go to FC games. So all of the examples I gave are things that I've done with her. But not only that, we have expanded our friend group so that, when we want to play board games, we invite other people, other friends. She invites friends that she knows. I invite friends that I know, so that we can all get together and play board games together. I don't necessarily know all of her friends. She doesn't necessarily know all of my friends, but we have an opportunity to expand so that maybe I can invite 2 or 3 friends at the same time as she gets to invite 2 or 3 friends. So again, it's giving me that quality time where I'm not having to plan individual events for each individual friend. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes conversations with multiple people versus one-on-one is really helpful. It's really nice, and you get more perspectives and more diversity to the group. So is there an opportunity for you to expand your circle so that you're not having to plan individual hangouts with each individual friend? All right, I have 2 more questions that I want to ask you, and then we are going to wrap it up. So the second to last question that I'm going to ask you is, are you thinking too big? So this definitely tends to happen when you don't see friends for a long time. You tend to think too big. Maybe you want to really get like a girls' weekend together, but the planning of a girls' weekend to actually, book a place and go there, and then a whole weekend dedication to a girls' weekend is honestly too big. And the concept of a girls' weekend might feel overwhelming and actually keep you from wanting to make plans because you think that it has to be this big, extravagant thing. And so if you get into this mindset of, oh, I need to, plan the time with friends, but I haven't seen them in so long. It would really be great if we could do, a girls' weekend. Maybe take a step back and say, you know what? Maybe I don't have to think so big. Maybe I can think smaller. So ask yourself that. And then the last question, and I foreshadowed this one, the last question that I have for you is, are you actually putting your hangouts on the calendar? So this is one that I feel really, really strongly about. And that is, when you hang out with a friend, put your next hangout on the calendar. It doesn't have to be, a week from now. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks from now. It could be a month from now. It could be 3 months from now. But if you put it on the calendar, it's something that is there. It's something that you're looking forward to. It's something that you have scheduled. Because if you just say, this is great, let's do this again sometime, it might be 3 months before you even text again, let alone get something on the calendar. So anytime that you are hanging out, as you're leaving, get your next hangout on the calendar. Again, it doesn't have to be extravagant. You don't even have to make specific plans. You can just find a day that works. And then as you get closer, just say, hey, what do we want to do on this time? At this date, this time. Okay? It doesn't have to be overly big. Do you have an opportunity to expand your circle and bring multiple people in? Do you have an opportunity to find new things for you to do that you both enjoy, that it gives you an opportunity to connect, is an activity? But get it on the calendar. Get it on the calendar. That's all I have to say. So as we head out, I have a call to action for you. 2 specific things that I want you to take away from this episode and I want you to take action on. The first is reach out to a friend. Right now, as you are wrapping up this episode, I want you to look at your friend list, look at your text messages. Who have you maybe unintentionally ghosted? Who have you maybe said, this was awesome, let's do this again, but then never made plans? I want you to go to that text message. I want you to go to that friend and I want you to text them a date, a time, an activity and say, hey, would you be free for this? Or if that's maybe a little too intimidating or scary for you, just reach out and say, hey, it's been a while. I'd love to get our next, hangout on the calendar. What does the next month look like for you? Or do weekdays or weekends look better for you? But ask specific questions like, what day works for you? Or do you have a specific weekday or weekend that works best for you? Or would you like to do this activity with me? So I want you to actively do that as soon as you are done with this episode. And then second, this is just moving forward. Is, okay, once you see that friend, once you have that friend date, do not leave that friend date without getting your next one on the calendar. Like I said, it doesn't have to be within a week of the hangout. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks. It could be within a month or 3 months. But get a second date on the calendar. And you can make specific plans as you're getting closer, but get it on the calendar. Prioritize it in your life. All right, folks, that is all I have for you. I hope today's episode gave you some tangible ways that you can get out of this let's hang out lull. If anything resonated with you, or if this episode specifically helped you to make plans with a friend, please let me know. I love to hear, how this is impacting your life. But otherwise, I cannot wait to see you later this month for our Community Builders episode. And so without further ado, I leave you, stay fierce and stay connected, my friend.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Connection Collective. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you shared it with a friend or posted it on social media. Every share helps grow this community of women who are ready to connect more deeply. And if you'd like to stay connected with me personally, you can jump on over to Instagram and follow me at Fierce Ladies Collective, where we're building something so special together. Until I see you for our next episode, friend, stay fierce and stay connected.